Phil, they always say if you can't win, get something, and you did that at Buxton, sorry.
Yeah, if you can't win, don't lose for sure. And after 82 minutes, it wasn't the greatest game in the world, but I think, if anything, I've got to say Buxton spoiled it a wee bit, and I don't mean that nastily. I think they had a game plan that they weren't really going to entertain, they weren't going to be open and expansive, and they weren't going to allow us to be open and expansive, you know. So they closed the key areas of the pitch down very well, to be fair. But having played them 3 times, we sort of got to know each other, you know. We got to know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And if I was a gambling man before the game, I would have probably said it would probably peter out into a draw. But it wasn't for the one to try. And you know, don't get me wrong, you know, we were pushing and shoving, and I just felt like the change of system in the second half just caused them a little bit more of a problem than what we were at 3-4-3, and then consequently, because of that, the game then does open, and then they get the goal, and you think that's bad management. We're going to lose this one. If I've changed the system and we lose it, we're in trouble. But we didn't, because we've got a good vibe at the moment in the change room. There's a good strength of character about us, you know. David Davis said something to me after the game. He said probably at the start of the season, maybe the first 10-12 games, when we were sort of pulling all this together, the plan for the end of the season, he said we might have lost that game, but it shows you the strength of character, and it shows you the camaraderie, and it shows you the togetherness of the team at this moment in time. They don't want to get beat. So consequently, as we've just said, when we did get the equaliser, nearly got the winner. It would have been a great result if we had got the winner, but the point has to be respected.
Realistically, though, particularly over the second half of the season, there were never going to be too many sides that were going to play an expansive game against you, because they can see what you can do on the counter-attack to start with.
Yes, and we didn't, as I think are rightly so being proved right, think anybody was going to run away with this league neither, you know, because of the different styles of play and because of the different qualities that each team possesses, you know, whether it be in closing down or defensive mentality or open expansive play, or whoever's strongest team's going to win the league. Well, you didn't have their strongest team for half your season, you know. All of these things are part and parcel of what, not just life in the National League North, but life in general in the world of football. You've got to be able to ride the difficult moments and then come out of it on the other side smiling a wee bit, and that's what we've done, you know. We've waited for this moment, and now we're in it, we're enjoying it.
You said to me last week there are going to be a few twists and turns between now and the end of the season. You must have come off the pitch at Buxton and then heard that Ratcliffe had turned over Scunthorpe United and thought, well, there's one of those twists and turns.
Absolutely, and then you're looking for the next one, who's behind you, which was Brackley, who we beat 1-0. You could say that was a twist and a turn. You could have said the 1-0 Scunthorpe game here was a twist and a turn. But everybody has beaten everybody, you know. Everybody has got to this situation where I said to you guys about 3 or 4 weeks ago, come the last game of the season, the whole league campaign might rely on the last game of the season. Who gets automatic promotion? I know I was thrown out there saying 5 or 6 teams could do. But at that time, 5 or 6 teams were in the hunt. Then all of a sudden there was a little spurt on from Scunthorpe. Then all of a sudden there's a spurt on from Harriers. Then all of a sudden Brackley. It's coming into form at the right time, and we've been in this kind of form for a number of weeks now, you know. And I've said to you many a time, long may it continue. And all I can do is judge me players from training ground, you know. And the training ground at the moment is bouncing. We had the sponsors here today. All the sponsors that have sponsored each individual player and coach and manager, and they were all at the training ground today. Glorious sunshine, fantastic summer's day basically, and we put a session on for them, not a rah-rah session. It was a purposeful session with regards to Saturday, and I had a little Q&A in my office afterwards, and we talked long and hard about the season so far, you know, where it's going to end. And they're in no man's land. They're just supporters, and I'm saying just supporters. They've followed us through thick and thin, and it's been fantastic, the support that they've given us. And they're still here, and they'll still be here next year. It doesn't matter where you are, you know. But come the end of the season, we'd like to reward that, you know. You'd like to give them something back for the many miles that they've done as well as what we've done. But we're all in the same boat. We're all going for the same thing, and we're trying to beat the next opposition, which is Curzon.
In the old days, before playoffs, what you really want now is 4 games against sides of a mid-table going nowhere, basically. But of course, with the playoffs, there aren't that many sides in that category, and Curzon certainly aren't in that category.
Ask me the same question, did I agree with the playoff decision back in the day, and probably my answer was no. But me and Neil MacDonald have been discussing long and hard about the top players. There's been a top 40 list compiled of the top players that have made the business of football a multi-billion pound, if not trillion pound business. And it means like the offside rule, it means like, VAR if necessary. But the playoffs has got to be one of the main players. That for me is making this season longer, it makes it more exciting. It means that there's still probably almost half of every division is still in the fight for a playoff, if not automatic promotion. It's just absolutely fantastic. And for the championship title in our division not to be decided until the last game would be a fantastic achievement for the division, and for every team involved. Regardless of whether you're at the top or the bottom, you've still got a say in the matter. And as Radcliffe proved, that say in the matter worked in our favour last week. But everybody's got to play everybody, and it's really interesting, really exciting. I'm looking forward to the Curzon game, and as I've said to you in the last few weeks, I'm not looking any further than the Curzon Ashton game. And if we've won it, then I'll go to the teleprinter, and then I'll make my decision whether we're going to go up or not.
Curzon are going to be smarting a bit, aren't they? Because they got turned over in the week by Spennymoor pretty comprehensively in the end.
Macca was at the game, and he came home with 1 or 2 home truths about Curzon and home truths about Spennymoor as well. It was a tight game up till a certain period of time, and then all of a sudden it opened up, and next thing you know, it's 3-0 to Spennymoor. They might be smart from that. They might not have played the strongest team. They might be keeping their strongest team for Saturday. I don't know. You've just got to go through that. When we talk about managers and we talk about rotation, and we talk about the world of the Premier League that can rotate 5 and 6 players every game if necessary, and like for like goes in, and then everyone has arguments about he's a better player than him and vice versa. Where we're concerned, we've got probably been playing our strongest team as near as damn it for the last 8 to 10 games. After 2 very disappointing games against Marine and Spennymoor, of which we were smartened from and have learned the lesson about the league from then. But the bringing in of Dave Worrell and the bringing in of Kyle Morrison has helped the change room in terms of the camaraderie, the mentality. The sponsors came up and they were looking at, everybody was smiling on their faces, but the only way to have a smile on your face is winning a game of football, and it carries on, and it makes you a better player, and it makes you a more confident player, and it makes a place a nice place to come into. When you lose games of football, which we have done this year, sometimes you have to come in on a Sunday and face the music, and it's never an easy place to be there. But it's been a great season so far, but nothing has been decided, and nothing will be decided this weekend, apart from the fact that it'll be a result after 90 minutes.
Credit to Spennymoor, really, because to go to Curzon Ashton, having qualified for Wembley to get through the trophy final the Saturday before, and with the best will in the world, they could have been excused for letting their hair down big time Saturday night and into Sunday, but to still go there and do a professional job, I know they can still reach the playoffs.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, they take credit for that, surely.
Very much so. Spennymoor's a good side, and the re-emergence, if you like, of the Spennymoor team might have been around about the time when they beat us 3-1. So, if you are going into the playoffs, Spennymoor will be going into there with that momentum, what everybody's talking about. But again, can you argue against 8 wins out of 9 or 7 wins out of 8 in the month of March and a good vein of form where that's concerned? You're probably going to question the fact that we only got a draw at Leamington, but you've got to respect the point in them situations, and where Buxton are concerned, we're now respecting that point. And that's been the nature of our beast since the turn of February, I would imagine. But at the same time, we've still got, as I say, 4 games to go, starting with Curzon Ashton on Saturday, and we'll dig that one out as much as we possibly can. We've been to see them, we know what they're about, we know what they're like, what system they play, we know what the manager's like, tenacious little midfield player, and one of these players that likes to put his foot in, etc, etc. But he's also managing that way. He wants his team to represent him in the same manner, and he'll have his ways and means of trying to come in here and put a spanner in the works at Kidderminster on Saturday. But hopefully the crowd that we hope is going to turn up, and the kind of weather, it could make for a great Saturday, but only if we're playing the right type of football and we're playing winning football.
I've seen quite a lot of your away games this season, I think anywhere between Needham Market and South Shield, shall we say, so I've done some trips with you. And just a word about your travelling support, which for the majority of them, they are absolutely brilliant and they really get behind the side. Sadly, I think there's just a minority that when the flares come out, it could just drop the club in a spot of bother if we're not careful.
It's one of them where, listen, the four lines of the football pitch are therefore to be respected, whether it be multi-ball system we're talking about or whether it be flares and people getting over boisterous or vociferous. We love the crowds away from home. They've been absolutely magnificent. But we have to respect the rules, and the rules are, doesn't matter what level you're at. You know, you've got to understand that the players need protection. The players need respect. The lower down you come, the least it is. You know, there's less policing at grounds, etc., etc. But bottom line is, the proximity of the players. You have to understand as a supporter, you've got to keep your distance and keep your counsel as best you possibly can. And as I say, we love the supporters. Just got to understand that there are rules and regulations, and if they fall foul of the rules and regulations, we do. So be careful, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, specifically with regard to flares, I think the referee has to put in his match report if a flare is thrown. And let's be honest, there's been a few match reports gone in this season involving Harriers, where flares have been present. So the FA are patient, but their patience is going to wear thin sooner or later.
Listen, we're not squeaky clean as players or as a club itself. You know, we have fallen foul of the rules, as you well know, passion, game, etc., etc. But we've got to understand that we are one, you know, as the players, the management team and the supporters. When we're travelling together, we have to respect the surrounding areas and the opposition in the main. And the most important part is that we conduct ourselves in the right manner, we'll be okay.
Yeah, I want to stress that's only a very small minority. The bulk of your travelling support, I thought, this season has been fantastic, really.
Absolutely, 100%, Trev. And the minority where the team is concerned is down to me.
So then, squad-wise for the weekends, how are you looking?
Still waiting on a sort of 50-50 basis where Cam Candle is concerned, but I'm hoping he's going to be back for the Easter weekend, which is great news for him. And in the main, I'm looking at players who've recently gone through the mill. Charlie Lutz, unfortunately, fallen by the wayside on Tuesday in a training session incident, and he won't be available for the weekend, but everybody else will be. So, you know, apart from the long-term ones, of course.
What's Charlie done?
Charlie's just tweaked his ankle. Just went over in an attempt at finishing. They came out as a little collision with another player, but he'll not be available for the weekend.
And final point, Phil, I appreciate it very much depends on which division you're in next season, but presumably it's a bit like painting a proverbial bridge. You know, the work's got to start for next season now, if it hasn't started already. So are you already into that?
I am personally, but again, it's an important period for the mentality of the group. You know, the players that have done it for us this season have to be respected. You know, whether you're keeping them for next season or letting them go. At the end of every season, there's always a retaining list, and I think the timing of retaining lists is important, and the timing of talking about them retaining lists needs to be as close to the chest as you possibly can where your cards are concerned. I have my eyes on everybody, to tell you the truth, and that's my job, you know, and the ones that I think can play at the higher level, the ones that will conduct themselves and maybe getting them into Harriers and getting us to the next level after that, you know, and that's what I'll be looking at from now till the end of the season and then next season. So I'm sort of 95% in terms of decisions made on players. If anyone changes my mind in the next 3 or 4 games, then I'll let you know.
It has improved a bit, very last point, because I remember Graham Turner telling me 20 years ago when he was manager at Hereford United, as they were then.
Yeah.
The rules of the conference at that point were that at 5 o'clock on the final day of the season, you had to tell players who was staying and who was going. So you had to get on the bus, in your case it would be at Southport,
yeah,
the last day, and say, well, thanks for your efforts, lads, but and you're on your way. And he just refused to do that. I
think it's moved on so much since Graham's days, and don't get me wrong, I've had to do things like that myself, there's no doubt about it. There's times where players have got to know. When I was at Preston North End, players got to know through the club secretary before I'd actually spoken to them one-on-one, and that can't be the case if it's a manager versus a player or a manager with a player, either way. It's got to be face to face. That's my job. It can't be done on a telephone. It can't be done via the press. It can't be done via an interview. It has to be done face to face. That's the men that we are, and I'll be doing that at the right time, shall we say.
It's great. Thank you very much.
Just wanted to touch base on kind of the look in the eyes of some of the players on the training ground this week, because you've been in this position before, whether you've gone for promotions or titles, and some of this group have a good experienced group, but there's some young players perhaps who this is their first time in that situation. I just wondered what the variation of the feeling was.
The variation of the feeling is it's a strange one, Matty, because you look at the players that are thinking that they're going to play at the weekend, and normally they're quite comfortable and confident, but then they've got bigger pictures to think about. What Trev's just mentioned, the question of, is there a contract for me at the end of the season, and what division that's going to be in. A lot of players may be getting nervous about that, so as a manager you've got to look at them and judge them on them morals, them levels. But like say for instance Riley Reynolds, if you threw him a ball on a beach in Marbella, or you threw him a ball on the, at the training ground, or playing on Saturday, he'd do exactly the same thing. That's how he expresses himself. Players like that are priceless as far as I'm concerned. Brownie's another one. Brownie would be exactly the same. But when it comes to a Saturday, they're playing the best game in the world, the best job in the world, and they're doing it with a smile on their face because we're winning games. I think the seniors are also growing from the youth, and the youth are learning from the seniors, and it's a compliment to the change room that it doesn't matter how old you are, you're fitting in at this moment in time, because as the manager, the way I am, it doesn't matter what your age is, if you're good enough you'll be playing. And that's what we've been doing in the last 6, 7, 8 games. They've been picking themselves. The hard part is if you're not in a team and you're really having to do everything you possibly can to get in the side. But one or two have had their opportunities, and I'm not saying everybody has took their opportunities, but certain ones know that they haven't, and other ones know that they have. So the balance is so important at the moment that we do keep a smile on everybody's face, because everybody's still going to be needed.